Hey there, Yasmin. Let's take a look at this new set of essays you've done. Okay, pollution. Why and how can we solve it? Let's see. Pollution is the biggest challenge that the world today is facing. It has been growing steadily in bigger cities especially. In order to postulate the solutions, we must understand the reasons of pollution in large cities. There are plenty of causes, but some salient causes are rapid population growth, deforestation, and industrialization, use of individual cars. In detailed discussion of the reasons and their solutions will follow. Okay, the grammar is good. A lot of the vocabulary you used is good. I think you probably could have left some of this out. Now, I don't know how long this essay took you to write. I'm hoping it took you under 40 minutes, but looking at it, it is rather long. So if it did take you over 40 minutes, we're going to need to talk about what you could have left out. And I think you probably could have condensed your introduction a little more. So for example, you could have left this sentence out completely as far as I'm concerned. Okay? So it has been growing steadily in bigger cities especially. There are plenty of causes for the rise in pollution, but some salient, there are plenty of causes for the rise in pollution, some of which are rapid population growth, deforestation, industrialization, use of private cars. Yeah, so essentially that sentence could have been missing and you could have just condensed this a little more, okay? And then in detail, it kind of confused me when I read it. You might have wanted to use a hyphen between in detail because it's acting as an adjective here. Or even better would have been the word detailed with an ed at the end. Detailed discussion of the reasons and their solutions will follow. That for me would have been even better than what you wrote here, or in detail with a hyphen. Okay, let's take a look at your first body paragraph. Big cities attract people living in smaller towns due to their thriving economy. Why is it there? Because you're talking about cities, plural. That leads to an unplanned population growth in the city. Okay, most big cities' infrastructure was not built to hold and address the number, accommodate is the word you want here. Was not built to hold and accommodate, you know what, not even hold, was not built to accommodate the number of individuals the cities are catering to nowadays. This imbalance leads to accommodation problems which are solved by either decreasing parks and infill lands by cutting down the trees. There is ample evidence that the lack of trees critically affects the quality of air. Lastly, the city residents like to enjoy independence for, let's fix that. Lastly, the city residents like to enjoy their independence when commuting and want to own their own personal vehicles. However, this is the root cause of pollution in the larger cities. Okay, so what this paragraph has is a lot of great ideas, but some of it felt a little disjointed to me, so it wasn't really well connected. Let me tell you what I mean. We talked about this, and then you said this imbalance leads to accommodation problems which are solved by either decreasing parks and infill lands by cutting, I don't even know what you mean by infill lands, cutting down the trees. What I wanted you to say here is that in order to address the housing needs of this increasing population, parks are reduced to build new buildings, okay? And trees are also cut down, in order to, again, build more housing. And then here, however, there is ample evidence that the lack of trees critically affects the quality of air, okay? And then this sentence here, it's not even lastly. It should have been additionally or secondly, because this whole thing that you wrote here is essentially one problem, okay? Essentially, because more people leads to deforestation, okay, in order to accommodate all these people. So this really should have been Secondly, the city residents like to enjoy independence while commuting and want to own their own vehicles. However, this is the root cause of pollution in larger cities. That needed a little more extension. So all of these cars are producing carbon dioxide and therefore creating smog in our cities. We've all seen photos of major metropolitan cities where, you know, there's this big gray cloud above it. So this is one of the main causes of pollution in our cities. So it needed a little extension. So you've got all the right elements in this paragraph. You just needed to make a couple of you need to fine tune a couple of these places to really make it stand out and make it a great paragraph. Okay, this paragraph in contrast is enormous. What happened here? Let's see what you said for your solutions. As the issue of pollution is grave, the solution is not easy as well. To resolve or bring the situation under control, the governments and people will have to work together in making and implementing regulations. There are many examples of developed countries where the city limits are fixed. For example, London, Toronto, and Vancouver are the cities where city limits have been fixed by the governments. Now, how does that help? You've given me this thing that sounds like a solution, but how would that help us? Okay, how would that help control pollution? Okay, so extend it a little more because it's not clear. Moreover, in order to discourage deforestation and littering in big cities, comma, the United Nations advised countries, get rid of the, to commence campaigns to grow trees and motivate children to participate in keeping their cities clean. Many cities have launched the campaigns. So many cities have launched campaigns, comma, for example, lowercase f, clean and green. Oh, wait. Let's see. No. Let's try it again, okay? Grow trees and motivate. Okay, many cities have launched such campaigns. Full stop. For example, Clean and Green campaign was launched in Malaysia and had positive results. Lastly, and I don't, again, lastly, oh yeah, it is, I guess it's 3. Okay. Lastly, dealing with carbon emissions caused by cars is not a perplex, it's a complex matter. C-O-M, not P-E-R. It's a complex matter. However, many big cities, London, Toronto, Vancouver, Tokyo, no. However, many big cities, such as London, Toronto, Vancouver, and Tokyo, have developed a transportation system that has drawn people to voluntarily decide not to drive, and very few people are seen driving to work in those cities. Also, encouraging people to carpool by increasing awareness will also be helpful. Also, I'm not really a huge fan of. Okay. So I think what you could have done here is you probably could have gotten rid of one of these ideas. You had several. For me, this idea about the fixed city limits, you could have left it out because it wasn't clear to begin with, and I would have just left it out. The other thing that I want you to keep in mind is that you're supposed to keep your paragraphs kind of equal in length. I mean, you don't have to count word for word or line by line, but if you look at it, this one is like twice the size of your problems paragraph. So it looks like you're spending a lot more of your emphasis on the solutions rather than the problems. You should try to balance that, okay? So I would have left out the part about the city limits because it didn't really make sense to begin with. And I think that the solutions you mentioned here actually fit much more appropriately with what you wrote in your problems paragraph, okay? So to conclude, pollution in big cities is an ongoing problem and needs a persistent and collective effort. Thus, it is fundamental to restrict the size of the big cities by implementing laws, improving the transport system, and growing because it's by implementing, improving, and growing trees to control air pollution. Okay? I hope that's helpful. I hope that gives you some ideas about how you should correct this, how you should focus on your essay. We spent a lot of time in your task 2, so let's go straight into your task 1. It's the car sales one. Okay. Let's see. The bar chart presents information about the brands of cars, yes, that were sold in thousands in 8 European countries. Is it only 8? Are you sure? I thought it was 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's what I thought. Yeah, careful. Inaccuracy. So an examiner will see that and That's a red flag, okay, for an inaccurate data. So to show you exactly what I mean, I have pulled up the band descriptors for task 1. Look at what it says here. Take a look at task achievement, band 4. May confuse key features, bullet points with detail. Parts may be irrelevant, repetitive, or inaccurate. Now, I don't think you would get a 4 for just saying that there were 8 countries instead of 9, but they will be looking to be certain that you are accurate with your data, okay? Now, remember, again, this says that you confuse key points, key features, and parts may be inaccurate, okay? This is just one thing that's inaccurate. But I do want to point your attention to the fact that they are looking to make sure that your data is accurate, all right? So, let's see. Overall, the Hungarians bought the highest number of cars, while the Belgians bought the least number of cars. Moreover, Ford was the model, no comma, which was bought in all given European countries. However, the model had the thinnest popularity in Germany and Italy, not the thinnest. And I don't know what you mean here if Ford was the model which was bought in all countries, because all 3 of them were bought in all countries. Are you trying to tell me that it was the one that sold the most? I'm not so sure about that. When I've looked at this, I always felt that BMW sold the highest number. I'm not going to insist on it, but I think what you're trying to say here is that, moreover, Ford was the brand which was most bought in all the European countries. However, the model had the least popularity in Germany and Italy. Likewise, BMW and Audi had a big chunk of the business in the countries in question. Nonetheless, the Belgians showed the least interest in the purchase of these cars. Okay, so this is your overview, right? It's really much too detailed for an overview. I could see in your notes below that you asked a question about how to keep it shorter. Okay, so essentially, for an overview, what I want to see here is that overall, Hungary sold the greatest number of cars and Belgium the least. And BMW was the most popular car in the 9 countries in question. That's it. This is really, really, really far too much information, okay? So you could save yourself a lot of time and a lot of effort by excluding some of that information. Okay, so looking at the number of the total sales in each country, in Hungary, almost 400,000 cars were sold, comma. After that, France and Germany. No, you can't do this grammatically. Let's try it again. Looking at the number of the total sales in each country, in Hungary, almost 400,000 cars were sold, followed by France and Germany. Okay? Get rid of the. Car sales stood at around 250,000 in Ireland and Holland, while in UK exactly, LY, 200,000 cars were traded. The Italians and the Belgians were the least interested in buying the cars, with sales, get rid of the, at around 120,000 in Italy and only around 90,000 in Belgium. Fine. You didn't have to include all that data. So you could have left out some of those countries in the middle and just essentially told me what like the highs were and the lows were, and then I could have gotten a decent idea of what those middle figures were, but it's okay. I mean, for me, you spent way too much time with your overview. That should have been much more concise, okay? This paragraph felt fine. If we talk about, you don't need to say this if we talk about the popularity of the brands. Instead, just say, regarding the popularity of the brands, Ford was the most sold in numbers in Hungary, more than 120,000. In France, all right, I don't understand the grammar here. Ford was the most sold in numbers in Hungary, France, and I don't understand this at all. In Holland, numbers were higher than Hungary. How does that make sense? Wait a minute. Holland, numbers were higher than Hungary. So then why did you talk about Hungary first? To me, these look about equal. I And I want to make sure that you do understand what these are. So, for example, Ford here only sold about 10,000 in Italy. In Hungary, let's see, that's about 100,000, 100 and maybe 30,000. So it's about 130,000 here. It's about that in Holland. So let's say, what did you say? All right, you did understand it. Good. But what did you say about France? You said France was 100,000. Yeah, that's true. All right, but this paragraph really kind of baffles me. We'll talk about it in a minute. Interestingly, the Italians and the Belgians showed the brand choice difference in almost the same numbers, which were, all right, you know what? You spent way too much time talking about Ford. Let's see. How could you have reduced this a little bit? I already explained to you what you should have done with your overview. I absolutely agree with you that you should have spent one paragraph talking about those total numbers. That's what you did. Good. Could you have left some of this information out? Yeah, you probably could have. You probably should have. Maybe some of those middle numbers, or maybe what you could have done is used a range. So what do I mean? You could have talked about Hungary, you could have talked about France, then you could have talked about Belgium and Italy, and then just kind of grouped all of these middle numbers together because they're really not that important. They're all around like 200 and 270,000, give or take, okay? So I would have lumped all those together. Hungary first, France second, Belgium and Italy together, and then just swoosh all these together, okay? That would have saved you some time. And that's, in general, a good tactic to use. Group together similar items, okay? Then here for me, you spent too much time talking about Ford and then absolutely nothing about Audi, nothing, zero. So that's a problem, okay? So essentially what you could have done here is talk about the numbers for BMW. Just say that they were between this figure and this figure in all of the countries except for Belgium, where there was maybe about 5 or 10,000. You could have said that Audi showed the least sales overall. It was popular in Hungary and Germany with X number, but in the rest of the countries was under 100,000. And then describe the figure for Ford in a similar fashion. Say where they sold a lot, which is obviously Hungary and Holland, and then an equal amount in the UK and France, but in the rest of the countries, somewhere between X number and Y number. That's how I would deal with this. So you give the reader a general sense of the data, but without too many details. Okay, so now for your questions. Let's see, because this has been a really long correction. I think I did this, and I think I did this, so you should be fine here. I think I did this as well. The level of your essay, I think that I referred to this. Okay, so is it a 4 in terms of task achievement? No, certainly not, because a lot of your data was accurate, but you didn't really mention Audi at all, so that's a problem. Let's look at that again. Okay, so you mentioned it really right here, and then there were no figures at all for Audi, and that's going to cost you. So take a look at this right here. Okay, this is again the band descriptors. No, you inadequately cover key features and bullets. Okay, so that's what you're looking at there for your task achievement in task 1. Okay, this has been a marathon essay correction, so go ahead and correct them, return them back corrected, and I wish you lots of luck. Good luck with your next assignment.